Boy, I could talk forever about that. Do you want a long, medium, or short?
Long.
Okay. Hi, my name is Nate Fox. I'm a creative director on Ghost of Yōtei. Before I joined Sucker Punch, I was working as an animator on a game about American bull riding. If you're not familiar, it's where a cowboy sits on an angry bull and tries to stay on board for 8 seconds. That's 8 seconds of gameplay. I found out about this other company that was hiring. It looked great. Went in and interviewed and joined Sucker Punch. Frankly, I got the job because the art director at the time found out I was scheduled to go to Burning Man, a festival of the arts, and he said, "Hey, anybody who's going to Burning Man, I like him." Working on Sly Cooper was a lot of fun. We're most of us in our 20s, and there were only 15 of us on the team. And so it was a terrific kind of boot camp where you got to see into every other department, all of this collaboration, and we learned as we went because most of us really didn't know how to build a video game at the time.
Finally, the secret police file I'd been searching for all these years. With this, I could avenge my family and regain possession of our most valued treasure.
Primarily what I was doing was laying out these challenges on the first game that were kind of platform sequences. And there were just two designers, myself and this other guy, Rob. And it was, frankly, kind of a creative competition. He would deliver a level and it was really good. And then I would say, oh man, I'm gonna work late. I'm gonna make a level that's even better. And we just kept trying to one-up each other, which of course I think led to a better game. Thank you, Rob, for constantly one-upping me. I appreciate it.
The Cooper gang rules the roost.
I was actually the writer on all the Sly games. It's what I do, you know, kind of in the off hours in coffee shops. And I had to get all the characters in my head. And often the scenes would just be improv'd by the characters and I would be writing it down. So they're very specific. So Sly's always pretty cool, kind of laid back and growly. Murray's the sweaty, kind of strong man. Hey Sly, I think we can do it, man. And Bentley, who's the brains, he is always a little frantic. Hey Sly, those are lasers in that hallway. And they would speak to me in my head. And they still do from time to time. While we were working on Sly Cooper, I remember there was a focus test where the person who's running the test asked one of the kids, a 7-year-old kid, said, "Hey, what do you think about this game?" The kid said, "Oh, I like it a lot. I like it a lot. It'd be perfect for my little brother." 7-year-old kid. And so when we got done with Slide 3, we said, hey, we need to make a game that speaks to the fantasy that is a little bit broader, right? Something that adults and kids will both be interested in. And an open world superhero experience where you got to choose if you were going to be good or evil with these powers seemed like a great fit for that 7-year-old who I hope is watching this right now.
Outside, things were bad. But inside me, something was beginning.
In the PS3 era, I think we were all really captivated by the idea that we could start building more realistic worlds. Worlds that represented what we see outside of our window. Naughty Dog was working on the unbelievably good Uncharted series. Of course, Insomniac kept going with Resistance. These are great games. For us, working on Infamous, we knew that the goal was to support this fantasy of being an everyday person given superpowers and then using them inside of a city that you could relate to. Again, something you'd see outside of your window. Going on to Infamous was a jump for us as a team because we were really embracing making a proper open world game. And that meant giving up control because the player's going to do what they want, right? They could go left or right, forward. They got to set the pacing of the experience, deciding what mission to take on and when. And it took a while to get used to that, to really embrace it. But I think that that's the key to celebrating a player's freedom. which is special to open world games. I'd say the thing that I'm personally most proud of from the Infamous series is creating a superhero that can get their health and their powers from the everyday world. Looking at a streetlight and saying, I'm gonna suck the electricity out of that so I can regain my health, and then project it out at somebody else. You ended up, looking around the environment, not necessarily at UI, because you were tied into the city itself.
That's interesting. And I've thought of another question in terms for Ghost of
Yōtei?
Tsushima.
Yeah, totally. It's the same thought, really. Keeps going. So when Sucker Punch got acquired by Sony, it was terrific because it meant we were part of this really strong organization that celebrated and supported a game maker's creative vision. One of the things that's very interesting about PlayStation producers that I've learned is that their method for dealing with game development teams started from an experience of dealing with rock bands from Sony Music. So they were used to saying, well, these developers are going to be a little eccentric. We need to support that because that's where the art comes from. And that seed of experience for music, I think, is what helps PlayStation games be so alive, because the studios are really treated as artists, and that means they're going to do some weird stuff. As we moved on to the PlayStation 4, we decided that we would stay with Infamous. We decided that it was a great time to tell a new origin story. In this case, of a character named Delson Rowe in a new city, in this case, Seattle, and use our knowledge of how to make an Infamous game, while at the same time figure out how to make a PlayStation 4 game. So one of these things is sort of the known, how to make an Infamous game. How to make a PlayStation 4 game is the unknown. So we were taking one step into the great unknown while maintaining another position of, okay, we have some experience with this. Of course, the hardware was so advanced, and our programmers, who are great at rendering features, really got a chance to flex. Our game was set in the rainy streets of Seattle, which is the area where Sucker Punch is located. So we knew exactly what a neon sign reflecting off a wet street should look like. And we went to work. And the hardware allowed us to make these reflections come alive. We'd hired some unbelievably talented actors, Troy Baker, Travis Willingham, Laura Bailey. And their faces and the nuance of their performance was captured and put into the game. And this is what you want as a game maker, to be able to capture subtlety, to capture relatable humanity, so that your bombastic superhero moves felt real, because you knew in the small moments it was also real. I think the moment when it was pretty clear that we were going to make Ghost of Tsushima was when the clarity of the fantasy was just written down. A lone samurai has to sacrifice his honor bit by bit in order to defend his island home from Mongol invaders. So just that one sentence, you can understand the game.
You will be no better than the Mongols. I trained you to fight with honor.
Honor died on the beach.
Back while working on Sly Cooper and trying to write the dialogue, I didn't want it to sound cartoony. I wanted it to sound like real people who just happened to be animals. And so I started reading this comic book that I remember from my youth called Usagi Yojimbo, about a samurai rabbit who wandered the landscape solving problems with his sword. And it's written with a lot of depth and humanity. And I became a fan again as an adult. And that really stuck with me. This character of the wandering samurai. Of course, I love classic samurai movies with the tense stillness of the fights and the beautiful environment that is always swirling and blowing. And turns out other members at Sucker Punch did too. So when we started talking about influences that moved us, the idea of trying to recreate a classic samurai film, it really spoke to us. I can say that it took a little bit of convincing, particularly the fellow one of the co-founders of Sucker Punch. I was on the phone with him. I was walking my dog, and he was saying, "Nate, I don't know if you care enough about this, if you really know enough about this to helm, a samurai game." And my dog started pulling, going after some other dog, and I said, "Toranaga, no!" And he says, what? And I said, "Oh, my dog's name is Toranaga. It's a character from this book, Shogun." And he goes, "Oh, okay, I think you're a big enough fan."
Brother, you are a warrior. I can see that. You trained your whole life for this.
We had gone on a research trip to Tsushima, and I remember standing on the beach, the real beach, where the real Mongols came aground and real people defended their home. And as a person who had made fictional games their entire life, to be inspired by this point of history that couldn't be more serious, it felt like a tremendous weight to represent this moment in time. Even though our game is it's fictional, and we're not out to make a perfect historical recreation, stone for stone of Tsushima. Now, Sucker Punch is an American company, and we don't really have the cultural background to do it right. So we talked to our colleagues in Tokyo who gave us a lot of advice and would review the game. We hired a number of advisors to come in and tell us, the right way to hold a bow, how to draw a sword, how to pronounce words correctly. It took all of these people weighing in on things that we didn't know we should be aware of. And when the game came out and we got a perfect score from Famitsu magazine, it was the best feeling you could imagine. I remember when my producer called me and he told me, "Hey, you should sit down before I tell you this." And you see that in dramas, oh, this is gonna bowl you over. And it kind of did, actually. I got a little weak in the knees because this is something that was incredibly important to us while working on the game. We got done with Ghost of Tsushima, and we couldn't have been happier with Jin's story. So when we came time to work on the next game, we were ready for a new hero. At Sucker Punch, we're big fans of origin stories. And so we set about making a new one. In this case, it was Atsu, a wandering warrior who was out for revenge. And when we clapped onto the folklore of the Onryo, these are revenge ghosts back from the dead to settle old scores, that really galvanized her identity as a new kind of ghost, traveling the landscape. And as she manages to beat the odds as an underdog, people think she's more than human, that she is an Onryo. And that legend is not just hers, right? It's yours because you're the player. That's the kind of thing you want to experience in a game. You want to feel that you are legendary. And when the game reacts, when the price on your head goes up and more dangerous bounty hunters come after you, it's because you're actually great, right? Video games are amazing because they immerse us in these situations. And we thought that Atsu's story would be one that players would love.
The things we endure make us what we are. But a ghost chooses who they will become.
Working on the PS5, the SSD allows us to do things we couldn't have done before. We have a feature in Ghost of Yōtei where with the push of a button, you can just seamlessly jump back into Atsu's memory and experience her family. Having the SSD be able to have 2 time periods loaded at one time is very cool technically, but it's really the application and how it just evokes something that all of us have experienced, right? Where we walk into like our parents' home, and whether we like it or not, we're remembering the time we lived there. Another thing that's very special about the PS5 is the amazing DualSense controller. I love all the ways that you can interact. I'm touching a touchpad right now with my hands. But fundamentally, haptics have changed the way all of us engage with this media. Instead of just seeing and hearing video games, you can feel them. And in a game like ours where two swords clash together, feeling it in your hands makes the moment more alive.
Did you dream of this?
You have to pardon my ignorance because I've forgotten what the game is called. But the coin flicking minigame.
Zeni Hajiki.
Yes. That uses the haptics.
Yeah.
The adaptive triggers, sorry. What can you tell us about that? Because that's the most fun I've had with a minigame for a long time. Just being able to feel like I'm actually good at it.
I really have a strong affection for you right now. One of the aspects of Ghost of Yōtei that I've spent way too many hours playtesting and giving notes on is this minigame called Zeni Hajiki, in which you flick coins on a table inside of some kind of ne'er-do-well places with people who are gambling for money. And it's cool because you can feel in the controller the tension on Atsu's finger while she gets ready to flick the coin. And the controller really gets that tension across through it buzzing. And you have a sense for how intense your flick's gonna be before you let go. So you end up starting to play by feel, which is exactly what you want as a gamer. What I love in mini games is when they don't take that long to learn, because I'm pretty impatient, but they have a lot of depth. And so Zeni Hajiki is one of my faves because it's pretty simple. In fact, I would bet a lot of people who play Zeni Hajiki in our game go out with their friends to a bar with a handful of coins, and they start playing on their own with drinks on the table and talking smack to each other about who wins and who loses. Working at PlayStation, being part of the family now in 2025 compared to when we were working on Sly Cooper, it's in a lot of ways the same. We've been lucky enough to work with the same producer the entire time. He is tremendous. He's a great friend of the studio and just a great friend. He's believed in us, he supports us, as does all of PlayStation, and that has not changed one bit. However, we're bigger now. We're working on a game with so many people with their specialties, and more folks are aware of video games. And it's nice that it's part of the cultural conversation, that people you didn't know would know about video games suddenly are paying attention to them. Sometimes we get into games and we wonder why that they're not kind of seen. Well, that just feels like it's changing, right? More and more gamers are joining us every day and sharing in our passions.
PlayStation